UK Sport is a national organisation, and its primary role revolves around elite sport. And we're going to look at this in a little bit more detail, exactly what we mean by that in a second. But we are looking at elite sport here. We see the notion of inspiring the nation here, but make no mistake, that inspiration comes through the medium of elite sport. And effectively, if you look at the logo here carefully, we've got sort of a person crossing the line in celebration. We've got a medal winner, we could put it like that. So what I'd like to do immediately is I'd like to talk to you about the role and function of UK Sport. Now, it is a national lottery funded organisation via Sport England, but what are its specific purposes? So first of all, UK Sport funds the national institutes. Okay, funds the national institutes. Now, we're going to look at national institutes in a whole separate tutorial depending on the course that you're on, but national institutes are those centres which are specialised in the support of elite athletes in, for example, canoeing and kayaking in Nottingham, or it might be, it could be in, let's say, sailing in Weymouth. These are examples of these national institutes, and UK Sport supports and funds those. UK Sport is also responsible for talent identification models in general. So if I put talent ID and sort of list it that way, and we're particularly interested with UK Sport in the provision of finances to support this process. So of course they're going to work with national governing bodies to support the process of talent identification. But we're also interested here, they perform a slightly different role with regard to talent ID. I'll put it again in the same phrasing here. Let me just draw down slightly. Talent ID, because they're involved in what we would call schemes, and I really want you to get the specific wording into your answer if you can. Schemes to uncover untapped potential. Now, the word potential is one we're going to come back to in a second, and you'll see why. But untapped potential, UK Sport is about discovering athletes and discovering the potential for those athletes to go and do great things. Now, it also manages what we're going to call the WC programme. Now, by WC, we're not talking about any kind of miniature bathroom here. We are talking about a world-class pathway, the world-class programme. And what they do, and I'll give you more details of this in a second, because I sort of want to finish with that, because I think it's a really big picture aspect. They assist the NGBs, the national governing bodies, let's say, for example, let's talk about something like UK Athletics as an example. They assist the NGBs to administer and fund this world-class programme. And as I said, I'm going to come back to this in a second because it's a really important big picture aspect for us. But let's go a bit further with these roles and functions. They also, I've mentioned this already, they work with NGBs generally, and they do so on the idea of funding. So they decide on the funding of NGBs, and specifically they decide this is based on the success or failure of the sport. So I'll give you an example of this. From memory 2000, I think it was in 2016, British table tennis was really struggling to achieve international success, and particularly Olympic Games. The funding there was cut. So this was based on success or failure. Effectively, UK Sport decided that funding was better spent elsewhere, with a possibility of medals in other areas if investment was made. Let's say swimming, let's say cycling, let's say athletics, as possible examples of what those other areas could be. Let's go a little bit further. They also do athlete funding. So let's refer to this as athlete funding and support. Okay, so it's direct athlete funding and support, direct to the athletes. And effectively, they do this by funding every NGB to do so. Funding every NGB. And of course, that level of funding is going to be what we described before, based on the relative success or failure of that particular activity. And finally, they do elite coach development. So these are the functions and the roles, elite coach development. These are the functions and the roles. Now notice that none of these roles are about mass participation, grassroots. We might get a knock-on effect of that, but that's not what we're talking about here. Now, what I would like to do is come back to our WC program down here, and I'm going to sort of bring you down to here. And what I want to do is draw a very rudimentary crude table in here, separate it into 2, and then separate it into 6, because I want you to understand what this world-class program is. Okay, so just to be clear, this is UK Sports. This is UK Sports world-class program. And this is about, effectively, by the way, they deliver this, as we've mentioned above, via the national governing bodies, but this is how they fund elite athletes. So what we've got is we have got level 1 up here. Now level 1 is called Podium. Now in the level 1 Podium spot, and I should have left myself a much bigger space over here, they fund athletes that have the potential to win at next Olympics. So think about these being your very, very top level performers. Doesn't fit in there, never mind. Very, very top level performers, which might medal at the very next, typically Olympic Games. It could be World Championships, but typically Olympic Games. Those athletes receive financial world-class program support in level 1 Podium level. Now, of course, that doesn't cover all athletes. Not every athlete is at that sort of part of the trajectory of their career. So they also have what's called level 2. Is that a different colour? Yeah. Level 2, and it's what's called Podium Potential. And this won't surprise you. There will be people that we want to support sort of coming up behind those international world-renowned athletes at this very moment. And these ones have the potential, I'm going to go out of the box here, to win medals, and that's the same for the one above, by the way, at next but one games, at the, I'll just emerge from the box, at the next but one games. Okay, and this model here, sorry it's so scruffy, this model has a maximum range of 8 years. That doesn't mean an athlete can't be on it for longer than 8 years. It's just that somebody on the Podium Potential part of it, the furthest into the future the system will look is 8 years. That next game's immediately after, 2 before have just finished, right? So that's what the world-class program is. That's what UK Sport does, and I hope that's helpful. Thanks.